Welcome to the Mindset Matters podcast, where we talk everything about building a better or more positive mindset to make you feel so good in life. But anyway, today's topic, I was just thinking about this because right now I'm trying to write my own story. And when I thinking very hard, I actually came up with a few events that I almost forgot about. And that led me to think, oh my God, throughout my childhood, I've always been the type that's all about getting things done perfectly. And if I can't get it done perfect, I'd rather not even try. I have a few examples of that, but how many times have we been in the situation where we feel like we need to do this good? Like we have to do this so well that it has to look perfect. Otherwise, we may as well not show up at all. So it can be, it can be like a lot of different things. It could be a lot of artistic things that could be drawing, could be like making making something, making a book, or you have this imposter syndrome, like this just self-doubt, like, oh, like I can't do this well, or people have done it better than me. Like how many times have we thought, oh, people have done it better than me, so I shouldn't bother, right? Because that's how I thought for the majority of my life. And if I could tell you the secret to how I got out of thinking that, it's this. It's very important to realize that while there are people who are better than you, but you are also unique in your own circumstances. You have an advantage that nobody else have, and that is your own story. And what's really amazing about that is you get to actually like tell your story, and you can share the same message. You can share this topic could be the same. You can have 20 people talking about the same topic, but you'll find that every single person tells it slightly different. You're not going to ever hear the same story twice unless it's the same person reading off a script 2 times in a row. It's going to be different because of their life experiences. Like if I told you how I overcome my fears, it's going to be very different from how someone else how they overcome their fears. And what I find really amazing is that there's always someone else who's gone through something very similar to you. So even if you feel like there's nobody in the world, like okay, I feel like I'm contradicting myself, but there's always going to be someone who feel like they see some part of their life in yours, is what I meant. Not that they had the same life, but they can relate to certain parts. So, it's like, while you might not have the same experience, there will be parts that you will be able to relate. So when you tell your story, what's really cool is that for people who just want to find someone that they could relate to, they'll probably find it in your story. And that's what I find very interesting, is whenever I'm telling my story, I have a lot of people say, oh my God, you wrote exactly how I felt during that time, or I could have written that myself. And while it's not the exact same, but it's still, wow, like that person can relate. And of course, like I was just saying, like everyone's story is different now. It's like, oh, we'll find things in common. No, what I mean by that is not like, okay, everyone's story is completely different. What I mean is you will just find that your story has so much unique aspect to it that it's going to be different from the next person who's telling the story. But your story could also relate a lot to people who had a similar experience. But not the exact experience, but there will be some elements that are so similar that they're going to really relate to you. And that's what I find that I love hearing, is like different people sharing similar experiences and hearing about the things in a different perspective. Because also what I also find very interesting is that when you go through certain life events, or you experience things, your perception of certain situations will be very different from someone else. So you might see a situation very differently from how someone else who had a different upbringing will see the same situation. So that's what I find very, very interesting. And I just remember listening to these podcasts, and I was so interested because they brought on different guests, and I was like, oh wow, I love hearing how this person's talking about how to do this and that, but their story is so different. So that's really interesting to me. I want to share my earliest memories of this imposter syndrome. I know I shared one of them many times, but I'll share the new one first, because that one I have actually never told the story before. So when I was about 10, 12, that age, I was really into playing the piano and music and everything. So Mum sent me to piano lessons, and her her friend, her really good friend, was my piano teacher for a number of years. And what I remember is her friend is a very, very, very talented opera singer. So like she had that opera voice that was like just radio to the back of the room, right? Like it was such a powerful voice. And the kind of piano lessons I took back then was like you had to take an exam to get to a certain grade or something for the piano, and then once you get to the 7th grade you're at the highest, and then you can actually teach other people piano or something. I think that's how it worked. I can't remember, but to actually pass the piano exams you actually had to do more than just play a song. You have to know you have to know a lot of theory, and you also have to sing. You have to like do all these crazy things. So one of the things that I was always really worried about doing is singing. Why? Because here's this amazing opera singer. Her voice is so freaking powerful and beautiful, right? And then she's asking me to sing, me, the freaking person who can't sing at all. Like, I'm just like, what the hell? Like, I can't do this. So I just remember there were lessons in my childhood where she's like trying her best to get me to sing, and it was just like singing this note, like repeat after me, sing ah or something like that, or sing ah, like, it's just singing. And I couldn't do it. I sat in there in silence and I was like, nope, you can't get me to sing. Like, I just refused. I refused to sing after her. And she got really, really agitated because she didn't really know why I wouldn't sing. She kind of just saw me as being stubborn. But the truth is, if I could go back in time and tell her what's going on, I would. I would say, this kid had a very severe imposter syndrome. She's too scared to sing because you are a great singer, and she feels like a piece of crap when she's singing. That's basically how I felt. Like, why would I even try to sing when she's so good at it and I sound like shit? That's what I think. That's what I thought, that because she sang so well, that any type of sound out of my mouth would be utter... There's like a hair in my mouth. Sorry. Would be utter crap, and I shouldn't bother. So we went back and forth. Thing is still there. Damn it. This is really pissing me off. Okay, I got it. So yeah, she spent a lot of lessons. I think we wasted so much freaking money and so much time just to get me to actually sing. Like, I don't even know how she did it in the end. I think she was just getting too upset, and I just, like, I don't know, gave in or something, so I just started singing. But I was so quiet, like a little mouse. I was like, and I always felt so nervous when I sang. But eventually, after like 20 lessons of her just like really, really demanding that I sing, I think I finally did it. And not once did she ever say like I didn't sing well enough. Not once did she ever compare herself to me. But I did it all to myself, and I was, 12 or 13 or 14 years old at the time, that I was just so obsessed with thinking that she was better than me, therefore I shouldn't even bother. And when I look back to the situation, and I'm trying to imagine myself in her position, and how sad it would be if a child would be so afraid to even take a risk to sing or do anything because they saw that I was better. Like, as an adult, I'm thinking like, if I was teaching a child to sing, I would never want them to feel like, oh, I'm a better singer than them, they shouldn't even bother. Like, I would actually be really happy to hear them sing. Like, I think however they sang would be so sweet, and I'd just be so happy. So you gotta look sometimes at a situation from the other person's point of view. Is that, like, I truly don't think, unless that person's super stuck up and they're like, oh my god, I'm the best singer and no one else can compare to me, like, which doesn't happen very often. Like, I just feel like we're overthinking this, oh, like, they are better than me, so I shouldn't bother. It's like our mind is filled with this scarcity mindset that can only be one good singer, that once there is like one good singer in the room, everyone else could just go get fucked. That's how I thought when I was a kid. And if you think about it, this happened even when I was younger. And I was like maybe 6 years old at the time. And this is a story I tell very often, so it's not like a new story. But our teacher would draw these really complicated pictures on the board. And I don't know if she drew them. Now that I think about it, she probably just printed... No, they didn't have printers back then. But, it was just like this picture of this very complicated drawing of some kind of bird. I think it was a peacock. I don't know. I just keep remembering it's a peacock. Anyway, she'd say, everyone, here's a piece of paper, draw it. This is like my worst nightmare because I'm like, oh God, I don't know where to start. I don't know how to draw this. I don't want the piece of paper I don't want the drawing to look absolutely horrible. So when everyone else handed in a piece of paper that was drawn like whatever they could, and they didn't mind like it looked really bad or anything, like just their attempts, I handed in a blank piece of paper. That happened for months and months and months. So I kept handing in a blank piece of paper, and the teacher was just like really, really concerned, like, oh, why are you always handing in a blank piece of paper? I felt like I was too intimidated to try. Thankfully, my mum realized what was happening, so she sent me to a drawing school. It was a very specific, like, beginner's drawing school where it was all about teaching kids the basics of drawing. So instead of like, oh, go and draw a peacock on the board, it was like, how do you draw a circle? How do you draw a triangle? How do you draw a square? How do you put together these simple shapes to make an actual drawing? So it was like, oh, like instead of drawing like a bird from scratch, it would be like, oh, let's draw a circle here, let's draw a thing here, let's draw a thing here, and now look, this is like the wings and stuff. So they really taught you step by steps, and that really helped me. And then I did these drawing lessons for a while, and then I went back to the same classroom with the same drawing, and guess what? I miraculously started drawing because I didn't feel so lost and scared anymore because I had some of the basic skills. Like, wow. Like, this is a thing that I couldn't even make up. Like, this is not something I learned from anybody. This was just a mindset I had since I was such a young kid. And I never was taught by anyone that you shouldn't try to draw because you weren't good enough. It was just all in my own head at such a young age. So I truly believe sometimes your anxiousness or self-confidence has nothing to do with what you're actually learning, but could be just events that's happened in your life, or it could even be something deeper than that. It could be and it's just like in your mind that you just automatically feel like, it's just like sometimes when people have gone through trauma and like scarcity, like when they don't have enough food, they'll develop this hoarding habit where they'll hoard every piece of, like, you know, every little bit of food they could, because they know that food is scarce and they would maybe lose their access to food. So my grandmother is like that a lot, like with hoarding, and my mum also does that too, where they will hoard everything that they could, like especially food related stuff. I just remember my grandmother would never ever throw out anything, like even if it's something that's like going off, even if it was like food that's gone off, she'll still eat it because she went through that 3-year famine during that time when they barely had any food. So I feel like that kind of scarcity mindset a lot of times affects you in different ways. Like, it doesn't have to be just food. It could just be like the success of someone else. So we're always thinking like, oh, if someone is a really huge success, we can't compare and we suck. And that's how I thought for like such a long part of my life. I just remember every time I saw someone who was really succeeding, all I could think about is how I would suck. Therefore, like, they're better and I shouldn't even try. So whenever I saw someone else's success, it literally was just making me feel like I was shit. And I don't even understand why that my mind just had this mindset that just because someone else was doing really well, especially if that person was in a situation like I was, maybe they were living in the same place I was, or maybe they were same age as me, or maybe we were trying to do the similar thing. Like, it could be something that puts us, like, connect us in some ways, and I'd be like, oh God, they're so much better than me, I suck, therefore I something, and that kind of spirals sometimes into this deep feeling of envy, jealousy, and feeling like you just can't do it as well. And if you're lucky, you might be able to get through that. If you're not lucky, you quit. And that's what I did for a number of years. And I just realized just how silly that was, because I'd given up. If I give up, then there's really nothing you can do. Like, once you give up, I feel like that's the worst thing that could happen, is if you just give up, because a lot of times I feel like everyone's road to what you perceive as success is very different. Like, just because someone else arrived at what you wanted, which may not even be right for you at the time. Like, there was a lot of successful people who were making videos when I first started, and I was really, really quite envious. I was like, oh, how come they got so much views and subscribers with just 5 or 10 videos? Or how come I'm doing the same thing and I obviously suck because I'm not getting nearly as much, right? But what you really don't see is this is the situation you're seeing is an anomaly. It's not something that is happening to everyone, because you're not seeing those people who are grinding every day, who's not there yet, who's not at where you think, everyone is. So you're seeing the success story. You're seeing like one person's success story, and suddenly you're giving yourself this narrative that, oh, look at them, they got so far ahead, and you're posting the same shit, and look at you suck. That's my worst mindset over the past, whatever years I can think of, that I wish I could have gone back to change. If I could go back, I would say something like, stop thinking about it, because as I always say this, I feel like Gary Vee is like the solution to all life's problems. Ever since I discovered his videos, I literally I feel like I'm a changed person completely, because I've been watching and repeating, and I feel like it really, really spoke to me. Every single one of his videos and words speaks to me in a way that I've never heard before. And one of my absolute favorite quotes that he's said is that nobody in the world is stealing your money and your fucking happiness, but the world is abundant. But the perception that they are taking your money and your happiness is what's actually causing you to lose, to making you unhappy, or something like that. It was a quote, something like that. I even typed it down because I loved it so much. But I just love it. I love it because that's what I needed to hear. And sometimes it's like you need to hear that the world is abundant, that you just need to put your head down and focus your own things. Don't keep looking at other people's success. Stop comparing yourself. Stop thinking that, oh, they're better, therefore you suck, because that is not a good way of thinking. Just because someone else has found success in their own way, and believe it or not, sometimes it may not even be what they really wanted. It could have been something that they're not even happy about. So you never know that individual person's story, but you can't just automatically think that, oh, because they're doing better, you're doing really poorly and you shouldn't even bother. Because right now, what I've really learned is to truly embrace the journey. That's one thing I really love, is that right now, I'm going to just completely not focus on any kind of those superficial success feeling, oh, I need to reach a certain stat. I mean, that is to me one of the most poisonous ways of thinking, is that you have to reach a certain amount of people to recognize you or something. You can't base your own self-worth on other people. That is so true, that if you do that, you're always going to be unhappy, because there'll always be that one person who's going to say you suck, and then what are you going to do? You're just not going to believe anyone else. You have to have your own beliefs of yourself, and you have to realize that this is you, this is how you're feeling. You make mistakes, you do all this, but you're doing your best and everything, and that's good. That's good. You have to have your own self-beliefs, and it has to be firm. And how you reach that, if you've spent your whole life feeling kind of negative about yourself and you don't know how to feel positive, that's when I really do suggest that you have to just fill your mind with more positive stuff, and just listen to that over and over, rather than listen to things that make you feel a bit jealous or a bit unworthy, or whatever it is that, if you're consuming things that is making you feel insecure, then I absolutely suggest that you stop doing that, and to listen to things that make you feel like you're absolutely able to do things as well, because that's very important. That will change so much of your life, because if the more you spend on the positive things, the more your mind will start thinking in that way. And it is like a connection that builds slowly over time, and it's not something that you can just quickly snap your finger and it will just happen. It really is something that you have to work on every single day. Unfortunately, once your mind makes up about how unworthy you are, it really needs time and effort and daily repetition for it to change. So I absolutely do suggest that you have to just keep listening to things that are positive. Try to cut out as much negativity as you can, or much things of other people living a lush life that you can't have, because that will also make you feel more just hopeless or insecure, or they're like, oh, you're not doing anything. So it's very important to do that. I do truly believe it. So yeah, how do we get through this imposter syndrome when you feel like everything's been done, and like what can you add? That's very important, because I always think that every single person is very unique. And for one, you have to sometimes think about how you like to watch things, like why you like someone or why you really, really enjoy someone's content, rather than just think of like everyone else. You think about how you like to do things. I love content. I love hearing people speak who've had a similar experience. I feel connected to them, and I feel really, really great like hearing their stories. I'm certainly not sitting there going like, oh, I'm greater than them. So, you have to kind of sometimes think about it like that, to talk yourself out of that negative self-talk that you often might have with yourself, like, oh, like I am not good enough. And honestly, sometimes I feel like when you're too good at something, that's great, and I love that there are experts who can teach you, but at the same time, we also just want to see someone in their beginner journey. Like I, for one, love following someone on the beginner's journey, because when I see something's done too perfectly, sometimes I'll be like, oh, that's too hard. Like I can't do it like that. So sometimes it's almost fun to watch someone struggle. Well, no, okay, you know what? That sounds so bad and wrong. No, I don't mean someone struggle. Like it's good to watch them struggle. But what I mean is, like, let's say they're a beginner artist and they're drawing and they're like making crappy pictures, and like it looks really, really off, and they have to erase it 300 times. I find that really, really motivational to watch, rather than someone just drawing an absolute perfect picture for the first time without ever erasing. It makes me think like, I would never get to that point, so I shouldn't bother. But if I see someone like earlier journey and how their art may have sucked in the beginning and then it got better and stuff, then I would feel more hopeful, like, oh wow, so I can do this too. Like I will be able to reach there too, because at the moment I'm at the point where I'm struggling with every stroke and I need to erase it 500 times, to the point where the page like actually rips off. That's how bad it is. And I'm just like looking at these people like drawing the perfect picture on a notepad that they didn't even seem to need to erase at all, and I'm like, how do they do this? How? It's like, wow. But yeah, that's very important. So I think people would benefit from watching like a beginning journey kind of thing, and just watch how someone who really are passionate about something learn and get better. I think that's a really cool thing. That's definitely something that you can focus on. If you're not that good, you don't have to be the best at everything. Like, I want to be the very best. Yes. No, like I feel like I often can relate to people who are talking about what they're struggling with as well. Like, I just really love it when people can share that struggle as well as like what they've learned and everything, and what they're teaching. I love to hear that things weren't like just easy in the beginning, that things were hard and they struggled through what I'm going through too. To me, that is really relatable and really cool. Like, I'll just feel so much more connected to that person if I feel like, oh wow, like I'm able to see how they got there. It's like, and a lot of times we only show, like maybe we're afraid of showing like a more imperfect thing, so because we don't want people to say, oh, look at how bad it is in the beginning. So like a lot of times what we see is the good stuff, the stuff when they do it really well. And Instagram is a very, very like the perfect place to find the most perfect everything. Like when you watch Instagram for a while, you'll find that almost everything looks perfect, but that's really not how things are. It just, people want to show like a nice looking thing. Like I'll remember that post one day I saw someone had like this really beautiful like room and everything, and then there was this one behind the scene photo that really made me realize, oh wow, so they also have a messy room. It's like that they were like shooting this like beautiful scene, right? This room looking perfect, and all the rubbish was just tossed to the other side of the room because it's like, oh yeah, it's like we're gonna make the room perfect, but all the rubbish is on the other side, which is pretty much my life all the time. When I'm filming and stuff, I'm always like putting all the trash on that side of the room, so it makes it look like the room is looking really nice, but it's actually not, and it looked absolute crap behind me, but the camera doesn't show it, so I can get away with people thinking that my house looks perfect. So that's the thing, that you don't always see this other side. So it's really important for you to realize that when you see someone doing everything perfect or living perfect life or whatever, and you feel like, oh, like I can't get there, you just have to think that things may not always be what you see, and it's really what that person chooses to share. So you have to remember that it's like life may not be completely perfect for that person, and they just may not want to talk about it. So that's a really, really important thing to remember. Otherwise you'll just end up thinking like, oh, why is my life so bad when theirs is perfect? And you don't know everyone's story. That's the thing. You don't know if they're going through hardships or difficult or struggles or whatever. And yeah, that's just so important. So whenever you feel the imposter syndrome kicking in, I do believe it's very important to just give yourself that self-talk. Like, hey, think about it. Is their life really perfect? Like, do you really think that everything is going absolutely well? They're probably going through struggles too. Like, you don't just compare yourself to them, because everyone's living different lives. One thing I also really want to touch on is, what if you really do want to share that imperfect thing, but you're scared of what people will say or think? Like, that's the thing, is that I feel like a lot of times maybe we feel like sharing more of an imperfect journey or something like that, or, sharing when we're not as good about something. But the big thing that's holding us back, or like that held me back for a long time, was like, oh, what if I share like a picture of my progress of how to do things, but I actually suck? What if that happens? And what if people will say how much it sucks? And you just have to think of it that way. You're not going to be good in the beginning anyway, so it's okay if it sucks. Firstly, it's okay if it sucks. And if you can acknowledge that, okay, I suck in the beginning, I just have to improve, I just have to work my way through it, that's going to be the greatest, most liberating thing you can ever think of, is that, hey, I admit that I suck. Yeah, it's like I'm drawing a picture and I know it's not the best. I want to improve. I want to get better. So that's the first thing that I feel like is so important. And the second thing is, you got to think about the psychology of people who will actively say to you, oh, you suck. Think about when someone just randomly say to you, when you're trying something, if someone just go and say, oh, you suck, why are you even bothering? You don't even try. I feel like that's more of a way for that person to get out some kind of negative anger or something, to tell someone to put them down, so maybe they feel a bit better. That's just how I feel like is happening. They're obviously not happy if they're going around and saying that you suck. I mean, seriously, I definitely know that when I was in my worst days, that's something that I could have done. That really is. When I was in those dark days, when I felt like I couldn't do anything, saying that kind of stuff is something that I totally see myself doing, because I was just so jealous and so angry, and that they're taking chances that I wasn't, and all that. And that just triggered something in me, that something nasty. But now, when I'm thinking about now, I'm doing everything I really want to, which is taking risks and talking about the things I want to, making the videos I really love, and not feeling like I'm trapped by fear or anything. I'm doing the things I want, and God, I just feel so happy for people. I would never say to anyone who was trying that you suck. That is not something that I would ever do. But it was something that I could have done in my younger years, and when I had worse self-esteem, when I felt absolute shit, when I was doing nothing in my life. Yes, that's the time when I probably would have done something like that. So you have to remember that mindset of someone who's doing that. So you're doing something very, very big. You're sharing with the world what you're doing. And it may not be perfect. It may not be even where you want to be at all, but you're still sharing it. You're sharing a progress. And that's very important. For someone to actually say, you suck, I feel like they're in a very bad place. You have to remember that before you feel like, oh, I must suck. Yeah. You know what? It's even good to acknowledge that. You know what? I acknowledge that in the beginning, my drawings are going to suck, or my singing's going to suck, or whatever you're doing. Like my storytelling might suck. Whatever it is that you're doing that you feel like you're not confident. Yes, it's okay to admit that. And I think that will give you so much power because you acknowledge that it sucks. So people telling you, you're just basically saying that, yeah, I know, I do suck at this. But guess what? I'm trying to improve. That's what's really important, right? So that's something that I really believe in now, is the importance of acknowledging that in the beginning you're not going to be that good at it. It's fine. Everyone starts off like that. I don't think I've ever gotten into something in the beginning and was like so good at it that oh my god, like I don't have that talent. When I first started drawing, yeah, it sucked. Like, oh my god, like if I could find like my first drawing, my first video, which I don't even know if it's up anymore. Oh my god, I was so nervous. I was a wreck. I kept like pausing. I didn't know how to speak to the camera. I was nervous, and even a year after I made that first video, I will go back and it's something that I would have to edit like every 3 words, every sentence. I'd have to cut out a freaking thing. I would just feel so insecure about the way I was speaking, and listening back is like so cringy. Oh my god. But nowadays, I find the more I'm speaking, the more I'm practicing, I feel like I'm improving to a point where I don't feel like I need to spend hours doing the edits. I often know if it's like, okay, there's a pause that here and I can't think of what to say. I literally pause for like 2 minutes. I need to cut that out. But that's it. Like, it's not like every line I have to be listening over and over to figure out where I need to cut it so it's like flows better. I'm actually more relaxed about it just because I've improved my skills. So it's not that, oh, I don't care as much about editing it to be perfect. Well, it is true that now I do embrace imperfections in what I'm saying, so I know it's not going to be all correct, and I know I'm going to make silly mistakes and stuff, but I'll leave it in there because most of the times, sometimes if the mistake is really obvious and it sounds really bleh, I will edit it out. But still, I feel like nowadays I just don't spend as much time editing my videos because I'm just like embracing more of an imperfect things, and also because I feel like I've improved a lot. I feel more confident in like, okay, so this is not going to just make people get too bored, I hope. Maybe it still does, I don't know, but anyway, I'm happy with my progress, so that's what matters, right? And I know that everything I have to say now, I think about how much I like to hear. Firstly, I love hearing the same person talk about their life experiences in many different ways. If it makes it like, if it's something I relate to and it helps me in some ways, I really do love listening to them talk like over and over. It could be about similar stories or the same stories. It could be just said differently in some ways. I will listen to it. I will like consume hours and hours and hours if it somehow helps me. So I have to remember that when I'm trying to record my videos. It's like, okay, if this message is important to someone, maybe they'll want to listen to it over and over. So I don't mind repeating myself sometimes. I don't mind if it's like so I try to remember that as well. And that's very important because I definitely know that I would definitely listen to it. I'm definitely saying definitely too much. Yes, I definitely would want to listen to the one person tell various parts of their story in similar but different ways. It's really, really fun and awesome, and I get to learn a lot from them. So that's something I really enjoy. I just feel like we're putting so much pressure on ourselves to be the best when a lot of times people want to see an imperfect work in progress journey rather than something that is absolutely perfect. Because again, when like, you just have to kind of think about how you like to watch things. If you see things that are too perfect, how does it make you feel? Maybe it's nice to look at, but at the same time, it might just make you feel like it's unattainable, which is a lot of times what happens to me. I like to see like perfect pictures of like places or whatever, or people like living a really nice life and stuff. But at the same time, it does give me that bit of a feeling like, oh, I'm never going to get there, or it'll take too long for me to get there, something like that. So I think it's a good thing to share some of your journey, share some of that imperfection, because it's life and it's people, and it's absolutely what we all go through in the beginning. We cannot start things being so good at it that we're gonna rock everyone else. So may as well stop trying to be that perfect example. So that's what I truly believe in. And that's how I feel like is the best way to beat imposter syndrome, is to just accept that you're not gonna be that great at something in the beginning. And people enjoy watching like an imperfect journey to something. Like I definitely would love to hear of someone struggling. Okay, so see there you go again. I sound so horrible when I say that. I would love, no, like I have to say it in a way that doesn't sound like I love to see people struggle, because that sounds so mean. Like it's not my intention, I swear. But this is like, no, that's not what I mean. I mean, I just would love to hear when someone's doing stuff that they've worked hard on and they're really good. I would love to hear if they've gone through struggles too during their time working on that particular thing. Like I find it very relatable when they can talk about their struggles as well as just everything turning out really great. So yeah, I guess now maybe that's the best way I'm gonna say it without sounding so horrible, like, oh, I just love watching people struggle. That just sounds so mean. Like I'm hearing myself back, I'm like, oh god, that's not what I meant. Please don't take it like that, please. I swear I'm not one of those people who just watch people struggle. No, please don't think that. But anyway, yeah, that's like my secret for imposter syndrome. You just have to realize that we're all humans and we all don't start off perfect. And instead of thinking just about, oh, you gotta be better at it, or like other people aren't as good, you just have to really think that it's about sharing experiences, sharing stories, it's about connecting. All of that matters a lot more than getting something perfect in the beginning. Like getting something to feel like, oh, you've done it perfectly. So that's very important. And it's like, it's really interesting because a lot of times, it's funny because I always think of this scenario right now. And I never thought of it before, but one day I just suddenly thought of it. And now I can't stop talking about it. And that is like, I remember watching a show back in the day. I watched like a lot of different shows. And I watched movies and books and stuff, and I would be in those forums and I hear people talk about this particular character and they're complaining about her, and I was like, oh, I wonder why they don't like her. It wasn't because she looked ugly, it wasn't because she it was because she was too perfect. And I was like, really? Like people hate characters that are too perfect? And then I went deeper into like what about it and stuff, and they were talking about how, oh, well, she just knows how to do things perfectly, she's just everyone's favorite, oh, she's just like, everything about her is too perfect, she's flawless and she's just unrelatable. And people were really dunking on this character for being too perfect. Like people loved her, I don't mean people loved her, but I meant like her family loved her and everyone thought she was so great and everything, and people really dislike that. And I just think it's so interesting the way we think about, fictional stuff is like how we probably think about real life as well. Like I really think that the way we treat fictional characters is a lot similar to how we treat real life characters, because it's all people, right? We kind of think of fictional characters as almost real in some ways, and that's probably why we feel so sad when a show is over. It's like, oh, it feels like you've been with them, it feels like they've become a part of your life and everything. So in a way, when the show ends, a lot of times we're really sad, or we miss the characters and stuff, or we can't stop thinking about it because we really do treat it in some ways real, like it's real. So that brings me to the point where people would just complain about this character because people in the show loved her. She was really, really nice. She was extremely good at everything. She was what they said was a perfect character. And what really interested me was that all these people in the forum were discussing how much they disliked that perfect character because it was very unrelatable, and they liked characters with flaws. They liked to see character development. They loved to see this flaw in a character. And I just remember being really confused in the beginning. I was like, oh, what do they mean by that? Like, just really trying to get to the bottom of this dislike that they have for this character who they deemed was too perfect. And when you think about it like that, then you probably can imagine how people feel about things that are too perfect in real life. Is that it might just give us this feeling of, oh, they're too perfect. Similar to how we feel about a character that's too perfect, maybe we feel about that with people as well. So it kind of alienates us in some ways when someone seems like they're too good at everything, like they're expert and they're really, really freaking amazing and they're knowledgeable. Like, it just makes you almost afraid to talk to them, like afraid to really, like, you know, it's like kind of just that there might be a little bit of a distance. Not saying there's anything wrong with being good at things or like being an expert. I think that's really wonderful. But it's just that you don't have to feel pressured to be that expert if you're not there yet. It's okay to show that journey. It's okay to show that you are not good at it in the beginning. I really do truly believe that. And yeah, that perfect character thing taught me a lot about how people feel about things like this. So I have to really, like, sometimes I feel like I have to really turn things around for me to actually see clearly situations. So instead of thinking like, oh, about me or like how people would see if I was imperfect, I have to think about how I see other people and stuff like that. So that's really helps. So if you ever find yourself in a situation where you are just filled with self-doubt and you don't know how to think properly, I do feel like a really good way to turn that around is just imagine yourself as the other person and imagine that other person is you. So switch roles. That really does help. Sometimes, like that saying where you have to walk a mile in each other's shoes, that really is a good quote, because sometimes you won't truly know how other people would feel unless you're in their positions. So you really got to just take your mind into that other situation to think about it. Like, if I was in their shoe and they were in mine, how would I feel about the situation? It's probably not the same as how you're feeling about yourself at this point. So yeah, that's my biggest message for trying to get through that imposter syndrome. Just know that what you have to say is very important. Just realize that people want to hear your story. I definitely do, because I'm always really interested. If I hear someone's story and I can relate in any way to it, I feel really, really close to the person. It's like, wow. And I just want to like talk to them and like, you know, I just want to like say, oh, guess what? I've gone through that too. Oh my God, I can't believe it. You know, it just makes me really want to like just feel close to them. So I feel like that's such an important thing. We're so focused sometimes on getting everything perfect, where we're forgetting about that craving for a connection, that craving for just knowing that we're not alone when we suck at something in the beginning. So yeah, that's something that I definitely want to remind you all about. And it's just so important to don't let, please promise me that you're not going to let imposter syndrome or feeling like you're inferior stop you from doing what you really want. It has stopped me for years of creating content that I could have. Like, I could have spent hours and hours working on my videos. Instead, I just wasted a lot of time because I felt like I wasn't as good, so I shouldn't try. Like, it felt like as soon as I saw someone else that were maybe the same age as me or similar age or doing something and they were successful in my old definition, which is like, they got a lot of like, how do I explain it? Just a lot of attention about it. And I would just feel like, oh, I can't do it. I just can't do it. I feel embarrassed in front of, well, not in front of them, not that I actually am in front of them, but it just made me feel really embarrassed. And that's just, you have to remember that is just all in your head. There's like, those people are not going to look at you as an embarrassment. Believe me, I'm not going to look at you as an embarrassment just because you're sharing your story in your unique voice. I am not going to just think, oh, you're an embarrassment. That is not how normal people think. And for the 1% of people who might say that to your face, that you really got to think about why they are saying that. It may be just a way for them to feel better about themselves to put you down. So you have to remember those things in order to feel like, okay, it's okay for me to not be perfect at everything, that I can share my story equally as well as anyone else. So that's what I truly hope you remember. And I totally talked myself out right now. I'm just like, oh my God, I can't think of more things to say. So I'm going to end the video here. I know I try to get to an hour, but it's not always going to happen. So anyway, you know what? Maybe I can just bullshit other things. I'm just kidding. I won't waste your time. But anyway, thank you very much. And let me know if there's any topics you'd like me to cover. And if you would like to be on the show one day, that would be really exciting. Please let me know. Hope you have a wonderful day and do your thing, please.